back from that trip with not only pictures and memories, but some very real reminiscences and lessons to pass along in a very artistic format. We're fortunate today to have Tyler Nickerson here. He is a junior at Quabbin Regional High School, and he is here to talk about his trip to China and to show you the efforts of his talent of putting together this documentary. So without further ado, Tyler Nickerson.
Hello, I'm Tyler Nickerson. Hi, thank you all for coming today. I'm Tyler Nickerson, a 17-year-old high school junior at Quabbin Regional High School in Barre, Massachusetts. I'm here to talk to you today about my experience in China, also known as the Middle Kingdom, and show you some clips of the documentary I put together on my return back, which is 2.5 hours long, which is why I'm talking and not showing you all of it. Just a few announcements before we start. Please, if you have any cell phones, to make sure they're on silent or turned off, so they're not disruptive during the showing. Also, at the end of each city, I'll have a brief question and answer segment. If any of you have any questions about the city I've just talked about, feel free to ask just by show of hand. Now, before I jump into the film, let me tell you a little bit about myself. I've been making films since 2005, since I was old enough to have a camera. And I've been teaching myself Chinese since 2008, at which point I started taking cassette tapes out of the local library and listening to them to learn Chinese. Once I entered high school, I started taking formal classes where my Chinese teacher presented the beautiful opportunity to visit China, which I gladly took, despite its cost. Now, when we started at 3 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Yeah, we were really tired. And we woke up at 3 a.m. and we had to take, we drove to the school, and from there we got all our bags and stuff we brought there the day before. And we had to take a 3-hour bus ride to Newark, New Jersey, to the airport in which we were going to fly to China. Once we got there, we had lunch, I believe it was, and then we boarded the plane. And let me tell you, it was the longest plane ride I've ever been on. It was 13 hours, non-stop from Newark to Beijing, and we were just absolutely tired by the time we got there. Now, we started in Beijing, which is in the northern part of China. It's also considered one of the most polluted areas of China because of the massive number of people they have there. Then from there, we stayed there about like 4 days. Then we took a train to Xi'an, which is overnight. Xi'an's kind of southwest. And there it's known for its history and culture, mostly because of terracotta warriors. From there, we stayed there very briefly, took a plane to Guilin, which is very, very tropical. It reminded me of Florida as soon as we got off the plane. And there's not a lot of history there, really, but it is one of the most beautiful places in all of China. One of the most beautiful places I've seen and probably will ever see in my entire lifetime. From there, we flew to Shanghai, which is considered like the New York of China, due to its fashion and high-rises and technology, and it's really a cultural hub of China. So I'm going to jump in there to Beijing. So right now I'm going to just show you the very beginning of the film, which takes you from the plane ride up through our arrival in Beijing and the end of the airport. So I'll play that for you now.
Hello, my name is Tyler Nickerson. I'm a 16-year-old boy from North Brookfield, Massachusetts. I've never been much of an athlete, not much of a traveler either. The farthest I've ever been away from home is Florida. Yet some way, somehow, I now find myself sitting on an airplane next to an Asian stranger, headed 7,000 miles away from home, headed to Beijing, China. And to think, only 12 hours prior, I still stood before a crowd of tired teenagers outside my high school. And as we pulled out of the parking lot in Barre, Massachusetts that morning, my dad told me that from this point forward, there is no turning back. There is no turning back. This is real. This is China.
She living, she golden, she lives for me. Says she lives for me, ovation. Who won't motivation? She comes round and she goes down on me. And I make you smile like a drug for you. Do ever what you wanna do, coming over you. Keep on smiling what we go through. One stop to the rhythm that divides you. And I speak to you like the chorus to the verse. Drop another line like a coda with the curse. Coming like a freak show takes the stage. We gave them the game, she plays. She say, I want something to get me through this semi-tongue kind of life. Baby, baby, I want something else. I'm not listening when you say goodbye.
Alright, that kind of jumps into another segment, I stopped it. But that kind of gives you a feel for how the documentary is really set up. It's basically a compilation of pictures and videos set to music. And I believe I used about like 52 songs, both Chinese and American songs in this entire film. Now, when I first got to Beijing, we were all set to go to a hotel for the night because we were incredibly tired, as you can imagine. We've been up for like 14, 15 hours at that point. There's only one problem with that. In Beijing, it was still afternoon. It was like 3 p.m. and we had a lot to do. So we killed time by going to the Olympic Village, Bird's Nest, and the Water Cube, which were used in the Beijing 2008 Olympics. And by the time we actually went to bed, we had been out for like a good 24, 25 hours. It was brutal. Now, just a little information about the Olympic Village. I'm not going to show you the segment from it because it's not one of the greater things we saw in Beijing. But Bird's Nest is also known as National Stadium and cost roughly $423 million US to build. And the water cube, which was considered the fastest, one of the fastest swimming pools in the world, cost just under $2 billion US, I believe. It's also the largest of its kind. The material it's made out of, it's the largest structure made out of that material in the world. So after that, we went to dinner. First Chinese meal we had, and they had soda and everything for us to have, which was nice because at that point, we just wanted some real food. The airplane food was terrible, let me tell you. Then we finally went to a hotel. We were just really, really tired. I don't think that many kids went out that night because we all just wanted to sleep. But the next day proved to be more exhausting than the first because we went to Tiananmen Square in the Forbidden City, two of like the largest structures, despite the Great Wall, in Beijing. And Tiananmen Square is considered the third largest public square in the world. It also was the site of the 1989 student protest, which ended with the bloody massacre of students protesting communism. Tiananmen Square was built in 1415 during the Ming Dynasty. And right across from it is the Forbidden City, which is this huge enclosure, which really is like a city, and it housed China's emperors for almost 500 years. And I believe it was 24 emperors of China that stayed in the Forbidden City. Now it's called forbidden because no outsider could be in it while the emperor was in it. So that's where it got its name. But then on October 10th, 1925, it was open to public tourism, and it still acts today as a tourist site. The movie The Last Emperor, which focused on Pu Yi, which was China's last emperor, came out in the 80s. The Forbidden City was featured in it, and when I went there, I felt like I was watching a movie set because I'd seen the film, and I recognized like all the architecture, and like, wow, that's cool. So I'm not going to try and explain just how many people were actually there. I think it's better to show you how many people were there because it's just an incredible amount. So I'm going to show you now those two segments. One other thing to note, Forbidden City also is a museum now. There's a section of the Forbidden City which houses some Chinese artifacts, which is also featured in the documentary. I had to cut it down because there was just so much in there.
Changes, I think. The week ends, the week begins. She thinks we look at each other, wondering what the other is thinking, but we never say a thing. And these crimes between us grow deeper. She 玩笑别太认真，我只是天生幽默，干嘛这样转过头不理我？好吧，宝贝，是我哪里做错，说错加搞错，冷静一下，别发火，不要生气，我说100次对不起，不要叹气，吵架什么了不起？
我说男生的无所谓都是自以为，我们女生一回一回都在给你机会，请你别理由一堆，别再傻傻自以为，怎么学也不会，是误会，是输罪，是你不对。
是我闯祸，还是每个月的亲戚害了我？干嘛这样？我受不了沉默。
So Dad, say hi to our folks at home.
Hi everybody. Welcome to the Forbidden City.
不要生气，我说100次对不起，不要叹气，吵架什么了不起？
我说男生的无所谓都是自以为，我们女生一回一回都在给你机会，请你别理由一堆，别再傻傻自以为，怎么学也不会，快承认自己不对。我们女生都在给你机会，请你别理由一堆，别再傻傻自以为，怎么学也不会，是误会，是输罪，是你不对。
How do you keep the group together and not get lost?
Our tour guide actually had a panda on a stick, and there was a picture of me in Tiananmen Square holding that panda, and we had to follow the panda, and that's basically how we did it. That's what other tour groups did as well. Like, if you looked in Tiananmen Square, you could see a bunch of people holding up like sticks with animals on them, and later in the film, I don't think it's shown in my discussion, but if you watch the entire film, there's a scene in which you see the panda up close. But that, and there's also like a bunch of people wearing orange hats, and they all have their own methods of keeping together.
Well, I would think you would lag behind because you were taking pictures. Or...
Yeah, you would think that.
We had in groups, remember? We were in groups.
Yeah, we would break up into groups, and that was we just have to keep with our group. But I was surprised with myself, I managed to keep up. I was forewarned before you went, like, Tyler, I don't need you going through these museums and being the last one in the group, because, like, I won't, Mom. I'm serious. But, yeah. One thing I would like to point out is I decided about halfway through my stay in China that I wanted to make a documentary. So the earlier footage you'll see, like in Tiananmen Square, for an example, is a little shakier. It's not as steady as my later clips and stuff, because it's just, I was being rushed, we were being rushed. It was a bunch of people. And I basically just wanted to capture a feel of what it was like to be there. So I would just basically hit record and like spin around in a circle just to capture people moving.
Tyler, excuse me, were
Yes.
you restricted where you could take pictures? Or was...
I think the only place I definitely remember being restricted was in the Jade Buddha Museum, which comes a lot later. It's in Shanghai. But the actual Jade Buddha, and just out of curiosity, I looked it up online after I got back. I couldn't find any photos of the actual Jade Buddha because there's a sign that says no photography. So I'm not going to be showing that because I mean that's really a center point of the Jade Buddha temple, and it's kind of pointless not being able to see a Jade Buddha. But that's the only time I can definitely remember being restricted against anything.
The military, we weren't supposed to take pictures of the military.
And yet my dad did anyway.
Couple.
Just then we saw, yes, the white military in that.
Yeah, that's the example I'm giving.
I noticed in a lot of your pictures that the Chinese were all around you. They like to be with you when they took pictures.
Yes, it's because in China, they're really all the same. I'm not sounding racist, so don't worry. But they all have black hair, and it turns white when they age. I don't think it really is a gray period for many of Chinese. So they were flocking around many of the distinctive girls in our group, such as the redheads, ones with freckles. They even flocked to my dad on the Great Wall, which is coming up next, because they hadn't seen gray hair before. And so this picture of this man taking a picture with my dad because of his gray hair. But I mean, I have dark hair, so people didn't like, I met a few nice girls, but other than that, people didn't really come up to me too often. Now, after Tiananmen Square and whatnot, next, those were really a big highlights for the day. We also went to the Summer Palace, which I'm not sure if you're familiar with, but it's this huge, kind of like, I want to say like a national park, but it's not really a national park. It's just a giant forest area with rivers and lakes that acted as the summer home of a Chinese emperor. And we visited that. We also visited Jingshan Mountain, which overlooks the entire Forbidden City. And the view from there was like absolutely beautiful. We have pictures of it, and you can see the entire Forbidden City. We just went straight through, but it branches off into all of these different segments because that's where it was acted as rooms. Yes. And so the next day we go to the Great Wall, which is the highlight of China. And other than Guilin, it was also one of the most beautiful, breathtaking things I've ever seen. It's over 3,000 miles long, and it's actually, believe it or not, broken into several segments along northern China. It's not one continuous wall. It was built in the 7th century BC to defend against Mongolians, and the section we visited, I'm pretty confident, is referred to as Baga Lane. It's near the wall's northern pass, and it's the most visited section of the Great Wall. And they had gift shops and other stores surrounding it.
Did you fly to get there?
No, we took a bus. I believe it was like an hour or two to get there, I believe. So I can show that to you now. Hopefully I can work this out. There you go. it is all steps. And mind you, because it's man-made, all the steps are very steep and very uneven. Me and my dad only went up to the second tower, but a few kids in our group went up to the fifth, which I give them a lot of credit for doing, because I'm surprised more people don't have heart attacks trying to walk up that thing, because it was like, and you saw people would like grip onto the sides as they were going down, because it was just incredibly steep. Little fun fact, that song that you just heard during the Great Wall, that is a Chinese traditional song. I can't remember the exact name of it, but because it's traditional, it was originally 29 minutes long, and I had to figure out a way to cut it down to 2 or 3 minutes to fit into that segment. Just figured that'd be worth mentioning, because I did that quite a lot for a few of these segments. So after that, those were the Forbidden City, Tiananmen Square, and the Great Wall, mostly our big highlights of all of Beijing. And there were many more. We also visited the Temple of Heaven, which is a temple located in China. I first heard about it actually during the 2008 Olympics. The local news station did a story on it while they were reporting from China. One more thing before I wrap up on Beijing I'd like to show you is something I found. It's not necessarily a highlight, but I found it very interesting, and I hope you guys find it interesting too. It's the Chinese approach to obesity, because in America, the approach that, like, I'm sure you've seen them, all of these advertisements for gyms, all of these advertisements for diet pills, and it's just crazy with all the stuff they promote. But in China, they will have playgrounds, if you will. They're like the playgrounds you'd see at like an elementary school, but the equipment on them is specially designed for senior citizens. And I saw people well over 60 do things that I don't think I've ever seen anyone else do, ever. I also saw this equipment in Shanghai. They had it on the side of the road for anyone to use. And we actually met like an older Chinese woman while practicing on her, and we got talking to her. She was a very nice woman. But I took footage of it, and I thought you would find it interesting.
Did you speak to you in Chinese?
Yes, I had quite a few conversations completely in Chinese. The segment then transitions into a tea house, which isn't nearly as exciting. It's basically just a woman talking and us trying tea. But we need to get that stuff here. We need to call up the government's order in China because we need it. But I'm not exactly sure why, unless Chinese have eyes in the back of their heads or something. But when I was there, and I went to film, like just about every person I tried filming, they stopped exactly what they're doing, like within a few minutes of me hitting record. I don't know how they knew I was there, but I didn't get that lucky with them practicing. All of the people you saw that stopped, they cut right before they stopped, because they didn't do it for that long once they realized I was filming them. They must be self-conscious. So. Anyway, so from there, I can't remember if it was this day or the following day, but that night we took a train to Xi'an. It was a 24-hour train. And it was pretty nice, actually. I had heard rumors before I went about there being bed bugs and other creatures at night living inside your living quarters. So, I was kind of nervous about the whole thing. But it was actually very nice. Got to bond with the other kids on the trip who were sharing the bunks with us. There was, it was kind of cramped, but there was 2 bunk beds on the walls, and they gave you a tea kettle for making tea and stuff. So it turned out to be pretty decent. Then we arrived in Xi'an. We got to see some of the countryside as we were on the train, which was also very nice. Now, before I jump into Xi'an, which isn't that long, surprisingly, does anyone have any more questions about Beijing or anything that we saw or did there?
How many people live in Beijing?
Too many to count on my hands. That's I'm sure of. It's more than 10.
I think it's 18 million.
Yeah. Yes?
I noticed in the wall, I didn't see much maintenance going around. One of those rooms you showed was just full of rubbish.
That's something I meant to mention. This Great Wall is very, it's so big, they can't really maintenance it that well, and many people just use it as like a public bathroom and stuff, which isn't really. I heard rumors about that before I went to Beijing, like don't go there, they like spit on the streets, and actually while we were there, we saw kids wearing what's called slit pants, where if the kid had to go to the bathroom, there was just buttons on the like back side of wherever they were wearing, it would just open up and they could just like go in the streets. So I saw like 1 or 2 kids with that. It wasn't pleasant. But.
What was that room that looked like a lot of trash?
That was a tower. And when the wall was in use, they would go up there as like a lookout. But I figured now, you could also, there was a staircase, you could go up to the top of it, very narrow staircase, but I think I went up there a few times. But yeah, people just use it as like a bathroom and stuff. I'm not really sure why there was so much trash in that particular one, but I'd imagine that's how it is for most areas of the wall because...
There were no public toilets along the way.
Well, there were, but those were, like what you saw was probably more decent than the public toilets because when I went to the Forbidden City, I had to use a public bathroom. And I was one of the few who was too chicken to actually use it. There were girls in our group who actually used a public toilet. But what it is I go in and I'm like, that after this bathroom. It's like, all right, so we finally walk off across Forbidden City to find this toilet. And I go in there, and there's about maybe 10 other guys in there, all Chinese men. And I go in the stall, and what it is a hole in the ground with a wastebasket next to it filled with toilet paper covered in human feces. And so that's when I decided that I wasn't going to use a public bathroom in China. And there were quite a few times where the girls would go to use it and would fall in, if you will. And then they feel the need to announce it to the group, which is the only reason I can tell you that they fell in because they announced it to the group. So, yeah. So any more questions? Nope. All right. So we took the train to Xi'an. Now Xi'an is really only known for its terracotta warriors and dumplings. I'll get to dumplings later. But terracotta warriors are handcrafted warriors that are life-size and were originally painted, not painted anymore. But they were made in, I think, the 3rd century BC, not sure. It took 700,000 men in 36 years to complete this army. And they were buried with Qin Shi Huang, which was China's first emperor. and he was buried between the years 210 and 209 BC. The warriors were discovered in 1974 by a group of local Chinese farmers who were digging a well. And I'm told if they had excavated or dug just a few feet away from where they did, they wouldn't have found it. And Xi'an would just be another Chinese city. It wouldn't be a tourist attraction. But they did find the warriors, and they excavated the area and built an entire museum right where they found it. And they're still restoring the soldiers today, because when we went there, there were people where we couldn't go, obviously, but there were people restoring like horses. They had horses. They also were buried with actual weapons, but I believe those disintegrated once they were dug up. And that's why the paint isn't on them anymore, because it dissolved once it touched air. So those, the biggest highlight of Xi'an, and I'll play that for you now. Not there yet.
优雅的圆弧线，我读到海明威很风霜的脸，从tun巴的岸边，我闭上了双眼，小船慢慢慢慢飘向蓝色天际线，女孩笑得很甜，我却视而不见。男人渐渐渐渐只想跟太阳相连，我跟蓝光寒暄，聊一整个夏天，肤色变变变变成了金黄的麦田。我飘在，我走在，我站在我的海，我睡在，我坐在，我真实在地之外。最清澈的深蓝色大海，
So that was the Terracotta Warriors. A few notes. The first girl you saw me with, I know I met a lot of women there. But first girl you saw me with didn't speak any English, which was the first time I ever met anyone like that. And she was a college student, so I could speak to her completely in Chinese, which was really good practice for it. And I recommend it for anyone trying to actually learn Chinese, is speak to someone in Chinese. It really helps you out. And then some of the other girls I met, I think there were some that could speak English but chose to speak Chinese to me. And then there were two that approached me that were English students wanting to practice their English, so they came up and talked to me. Another note is the song that you heard playing in this is called Haiyang, and it's by a band that features Chinese, American, and Italian music because of their parents. One was Chinese, the other was Italian, and they also picked up English along the way. Very terrific band. But anyway, Haiyang is Chinese word for ocean, and I went through like it was just a nightmare trying to find a song for this segment because I couldn't find anything that matched good, and I wound up using Haiyang, even though this has nothing to do with an ocean, just because I thought it sounded good. So it was just a little film editor's note. So as you started to see before I still learned to use this TV, there was the, after we visited Terracotta Warriors, we had a dumpling dinner because Xi'an's known for their dumplings, and it started to play until I skipped back to Terracottas. Yes.
The Terracotta Warriors, there appear to be children in there, is that right?
I'm not sure about children. From what I could see, they were all intended to be young soldiers, ranging maybe between like 25, 35.
Were they all male?
Yes, I do believe they were all male, and they had horses and weapons, but I didn't see any children, mostly because I don't think children could join the army back then. I'm not sure. Yes.
What was the point of making the sculptures?
They were to guard the first emperor of China in his afterlife, and they were buried with him. I'm not sure if the exact number of Terracotta warriors there were, but I would imagine it's well into thousands, and they were all buried just for the emperor, because they were very strict back then. When it came to that, it's like, you're going to make sculptures for me, or I'm going to give you poison, and you're going to die. So that's basically how it worked. They even, just one more thing, back then they would also, if emperor died, they would sometimes, depending on how ruthless the person was, give all of his servants and maids and wives poison to purposely kill them so they could be buried with him and join him in the afterlife. And some of the women were relatively young.
There was 8,000 of them, and each one of them weighed 600 pounds.
Would they have been made long before the emperor died?
Yes.
They'd already.
Yes, they were. I read that it took 36 years to build the entire army, so I would imagine that they started. They probably finished before he did die. Not long before he died, but shortly before he died.
Well, no one knows because no one knew about them, really, until they excavated them.
Were their faces all different?
Yes, that's a peculiar thing. And scientists have studied it. They are all completely unique. So they were all made by hand, and they didn't have molds back then. Nowadays, they use molds to build them. There's a terracotta factory we visited before you saw the actual soldiers in which they will recreate warriors for sale. Because they can't sell the real warriors, obviously. But, yeah, they were all uniquely different. Okay, so then we went on and had a dumpling dinner, and like I said, Xi'an's known for their dumplings. But something very peculiar about the place we ate at was, well, there are a few things. One, they were unlike any dumplings I've ever had. They were absolutely delicious, but like here, you go to a Chinese restaurant, like Yummy Garden down the street, and order dumplings. It has like meat in it. You don't always know what kind of meat that is, but it has meat in it. It's always the same kind of meat. But the dumpling place we went to, it had everything in the dumplings. I remember I tried just about every dumpling except for maybe like two. I know they had like pumpkin dumplings, they had spinach dumplings, they had chicken dumplings, beef dumplings, and those are only a few. I can't think of exactly the other ones that there were, but they had everything. And they would cook them, fry them, and put them inside these cylindrical containers and carry them in huge stacks to the tables they were being served to. And you're about to see, I think there's at least one picture of this man carrying like this tremendous stack of these dumplings, and I give him credit for doing it. But in addition to that, they also, these weren't obviously to be eaten, but they had dumplings which were crafted specifically into almost like origami-inspired shapes. And there would be birds and frogs, and they would craft the dumplings, and they'd be colored too. Like the frog would be like yellow and green. And they had them on display, and it was just unbelievable what these talented people did. So I'll play that for you now because I really think you'd find it interesting. It's just after this. So those were dumplings, kind of a short segment. I tried to fit in as many meals as we had into the documentary. I'm sure I missed a few. But after that, we also had a unique Chinese massage, which was very nice. I'm not going to dive into too much there, but I'll say that it was very, very, very nice. And I would get on the plane in a heartbeat just to go back, just to have one of those massages. Because no, it's like I think how much were their rates?
It was $12 for 90 minutes.
Wow.
I couldn't remember a conversion, but yeah, it was like really cheap for like a ton of time. And the one,
Many people have them? Did many of the students have them?
no, actually, I was the only student to do it because I think everyone else was too self-conscious. It's like people would tell me like, you should do a massage, I'll do it, and then it's like time to do a massage, and I get up on the bus, it's like, who's coming with me? No one? No one? Yeah, so it was kind of embarrassing. My masseuse was a Chinese girl who didn't really speak much English. And when I asked her if she liked her job, she said she didn't, but she doesn't have any money. And I only could figure out what she was saying until after I left the massage place. But yeah. While we were in Xi'an, we also visited some other places, such as the Big Wild Goose Pagoda, which is a pagoda, tall Chinese structure in Xi'an. We also visited the Xi'an City Wall, which is a wall that surrounds Xi'an. It's one of the last standing Chinese city walls. But you could bike on it, and that was another thing I loved about Xi'an, because it was just great, great exercise. From there, we took a plane to Guilin, which left at 10 p.m. at night, which was the latest I'd ever taken a plane anywhere. And I also heard it was going to be a very small plane, which didn't really comfort me anymore because of turbulence and stuff. So I'm there and like the plane starts shaking, and I kind of freaked out, but I'm better. So yeah, we flew to Guilin, and we got there, and it was late into the night, and then we had to take a bus to our hotel. And so we got to our room about 2 a.m., and then we had to get up at like 7 a.m. to go have a day of touring. So we were really tired, and I'm surprised any of us managed to do it. Before I go into Guilin, does anyone have any more questions about Xi'an? All right.
I'd like to know about your side, but we can talk about that later.
Okay. All right. So we go into Guilin, and it's very tropical. Second I step off the airport, it was like really humid, and I felt like I just stepped into Florida because it was just unbelievably nice there and hot. And like I said, there's not much history behind Guilin, but it is incredibly beautiful. And a highlight I'd like to bring up is the Li River and a section of near Guilin called Yangshuo, which is kind of like a shopping district. So we went to Yangshuo. Before that, we went to Fubo Hill, a few other landmarks, not as well known as Li River. But Yangshuo is a shopping district which is also popular for biking and mountain climbing and overall tourism, because they have some caves there too, which we visited. We visited a flute cave. But we went to Yangshuo to shop, and they had all these street markets, and we bought some pretty interesting things, which I brought up in the clip I'm about to show you. And then from there, we took a bus to the Li River, where we got on a boat and took a cruise. And let me tell you, it's the most beautiful thing I think I've ever seen in my life. The Li River is, it originates in the Mawar Mountains in northern China and goes down to Guilin, Yangshuo. And it's surrounded by all these limestone foundations that look like mountains, but they're really limestone. And it's just breathtaking, the scenery. The Li River is also associated with cormorant fishing, which I'll touch upon later. But right now, I'd just like to show you the beauty I found in the Li River in Guilin. So.
Slingshot right here.
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's
I just pick shit up off the street and I fling it. 35 yuan.
What did you get?
I also got
Nice beam.
100%.
What did you get?
I got 2 dresses, a scarf, and a necklace.
You get anything?
I got 2 t-shirts and some postcards.
Josh, you get anything?
Oh yeah, I got meat. That's what I got.
Toby, you got anything?
I got this.
That implies that you got
And then I bought a nice sandalwood bracelet.
I bought sandalwood pumps and
These were bought with the help of Chinese students who did the bartering. We went to about 8 comb stores, and I had some help because the student said I was their teacher. So the vendor gave us a great price. Originally one of these was 80 yuan. So I got them both for 60 yuan.
这也许是天气，也许是运气，也许是因为有人不放弃，也许是天意，也许不愿意，也许是因为他，还是因为我和你。
It is a smart local noodle factory.
因为我和你。
So as you can see, that was the Lee River in Yangshuo. On the Lee River, we ran into a few other cruise boats that with other tourists on them. And we got to listen to all of the girls in our group yell hello in Chinese off the side of the boat to every other passing living thing. So it was kind of annoying. And if you took out the music and turned up the audio, you could hear him yelling ni hao off the side of the boat. And one actually was trying to clamp shut the mouth of a girl trying to sing in Chinese. So yeah, that's fun. Then in Yangshuo, I'm not sure if you noticed, but in that Mayo Cafe we ate at, there was pictures of like all of these communist leaders on the wall. And I found that very interesting because they have high praise for communism over there. And so we ate lunch with Chairman Mao looking down on us. But it was kind of cool. They had snippets of like biographies describing them, written in Port English, if I can remember. I think it was Port English because that was just Chinese, but I want to say it was English. Another thing in Yangshuo, as Abby White, who was the woman at the very end of the shopping interviews she talked, she was talking about bartering, and that's a big thing in China, bartering. I was horrible at it. My dad was good at it, and often would do it for other kids in the group, where a lot of the merchants in China would only know enough English to bargain with you. Like, I'll pay you 40 yuan for this. No, give me 50. No, I'll give you 45. Like, that sort of bargain. Yeah. And and I'll talk more about that in Shanghai, because that was really a big hub of bargaining. But sometimes we would even have signs that would say no bargaining. Bartering, because it's a set price. But yeah, my dad would be in Beijing buying fake Rolex watches from people in Tiananmen Square. And he had mentioned to me about staying back and losing the group because of filming. Well, that happened quite a few times with my dad. He'd be like, hey guys, you see my dad? Yeah, he's back there with the watch salesman. Yeah, so I had to pull him away a few times. Love that. So, yeah, and I'll talk more about that in Shanghai. And as I mentioned earlier, Lee River is associated with cormorant fishing, which me and my dad and some other people took a cormorant fishing, like behind the scenes look sort of thing. I think it was that night, I want to say. And I'll show you a clip of that, but just a little background on cormorant fishing. It's a practice of fishing that's been in practice for hundreds of years, and involves cormorant birds, which is where it gets its name. What happens is the fishermen will go out, and they're the kind of traditional Chinese fishermen you always see with like the triangular-looking hats. They will go out and they'll take their birds and tie strings around their necks. And this is why it's not in practice in America, because we have humanitarian laws over here. But they tie a string around the neck and send them into the water after these fish. And the larger fish will get stuck in their throats and they can't swallow them because, and I call it choking, but apparently it's not choking, what people tell me. But, so it gets stuck in their throat, and then they'll take out the fish and put it in their basket of catch, which is really the most clean way to do things, sanitary, because you're eating fish just by your birds in the throat. But, and then the smaller fish, they can't swallow because the rope isn't that tight, and that's their reward for catching the larger fish, which is it's a cool method in theory if you think about it, but in practice it's kind of what you call cruel to the animals. So I'll show you a clip of that. You can see some of the birds once they catch it, like going like this, trying to, yeah. It's kind of sad, but it's also very dark, so hopefully you can see it, because my camera is horrible in darkness, and there are only a few really good pictures of the fishermen, but I'll show that to you now. I'll have to find it. Well, that was when the tour was offered, and not entirely sure actually, but that's when the tour guide brought up the tour. That's when it was available, and I really wish there was better lighting because it was very cool to see.
It was raining too.
Yeah, it was raining, and you could kind of see that in the beginning. My camera doesn't capture it well, but it was gray, overcast, and rainy.
In Japan, they do the same.
Yes,
fishing.
It's
They
practice.
have a basket hanging over the bow, which they ignite, and that way the light attracts the fish.
Yeah.
That's why the lanterns are in front of the longboat.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that's how the last
Yeah.
one.
Yes, they use
I
it.
think it is just at night.
Really? Oh yeah, because of the light. Yeah, that would make sense. I didn't know that. But yeah, it is a practice that is used all across Asia, and I'm sure Japan and Korea and all of the other Asian countries use it because it is an effective practice to study how cruel it is to the animals. So those were basically our highlights for Wayland. We also saw a Reed Flute Cave, which was very interesting because you go in and there are all these rock formations and they're illuminated by all of these lights. It's very, very colorful in there. And you just walk through and each rock formation is supposed to look like something different. And whoever came up with the captions for each of the rocks, because it was like a museum, they had like a plaque where it would say what it was supposed to be. Whoever came up with it must have been very, very inventive because I remember seeing a few that were just very, very out there. And I'm not sure if it was a matter of bad English or just, it was just plain weird. Because I remember seeing one that it was like a rock formation. And you got to be very creative with these things to see what it's supposed to be describing, because the plaque, the plaque said, it said caterpillar frightened by the magic mirror. And I looked at it and I'm like, I don't see it, along with the rest of my group who couldn't see it. But they also have light shows down there and everything. And it's very, very colorful. They blow bubbles, and I almost didn't get myself in the group picture because I was taking a panorama of the place. That was one of the few times I actually almost did get left behind. So from there, we took a daytime plane to Shanghai, which, like I mentioned, is the New York of China. Before I go talking about Shanghai, does anyone have any more questions about anything I've talked about lately? No? All right. So we took a daytime plane to Shanghai, and from there, and it's not really too much history or beauty or anything. It's more fashion, like I said. And so there are a lot of people who do business in Shanghai. A lot of colleges will have students go to Shanghai to study and whatnot. We visited, one of the first places we visited was the Bund, which is this shopping area in China with all these buildings. And it borders the Huangpu River, which we took a cruise of. It's one of Shanghai's most popular tourist destinations and stretches 1 mile long. The Huangpu River, which it borders, we took a cruise on, and I'm going to show you that momentarily. Just a quick note about the Huangpu River. It's 51.3 miles long. It's 400 meters wide and 9 meters deep. And Shanghai gets most of its drinking water from Huangpu. But on a different note, it also dumps most of its sewage in Huangpu, which isn't really a good combination if you think about it. So, yeah, I hear they, like here we use cow manure to, like, use on our crops, and there they use human manure. So, I'm not going to go too much into that. Here's Huangpu. So, yeah, okay. I'm going to have to search. Just a few things I'd like to point out about this beautiful shot of really like the new part of Shanghai. Shouldn't have done that. This building here is, I wrote it down, it's a TV antenna for broadcasting. It's called the Oriental Pearl Tower, and I'd seen it several times in pictures that some of my friends from Shanghai would send me, and I had no idea what it was. I thought it was a Space Needle. I'm not good at geography. But, so, yeah, I finally found out what it is. And also, this building here, that kind of looks like a can opener, that's called the Shanghai World Financial Center. And it's the largest building in all of China, and it's the highest observation deck in the world. And I believe correct me if I'm wrong, isn't the second highest in Las Vegas?
I'm not sure. That's the second tallest building in the world.
Yes. Yes, it is. So that's the skyline. Something I'd like to talk about. I don't really have too much footage of it because they don't like you really filming in those kind of places. But back to the subject of bartering. There was these things called knockoff markets, which all of the kids in our group chose to go to instead of Nanting Road, which is this huge, it's like Fifth Avenue, it's a huge shopping district in China. Knockoff markets are really interesting places. We went to 2 during our stay in China, I believe. And what they are they're markets where you bargain all the time. But all of the things they sell are knockoffs of other real products. Like, for example, Rosetta Stone, which is used for language learning in America. I'm sure you've seen the commercials. But you could buy, I think, 3 of them in China for $40. So I didn't, in fear that would crash my computer. They also had other things like knockoff iPods, iPads, everything. They were poorly hacked too. It was it wasn't authentic. It was just thrown together in some Chinese factory. And they had knockoff shoes and whatnot. They also, my dad has an interesting story actually regarding selling watches in a knockoff market that included a secret room. You see, what happened was this woman asked my dad if he wanted to buy some watches, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong at any time. Yeah. So, she asked him if he wanted to buy some watches because he was browsing, but she kind of said it in an undertone, not supposed to be doing this, so he's like, yeah, sure. And so instead of just taking out a bag of watches, she takes him to this back room, and she's starting to get really nervous at this point, is she going to kill me or something? So she unlocks the door, and they go to another small room. And is there another?
Yes, another room.
Is it just one more room?
One more room.
Yeah, so then they go through another door, and it's another small room. And I was away from my dad when this happened. I only found out that this happened after we got back in America. And so then she climbs on the stool and opens a compartment in the ceiling and pulls out this whole thing of watches and tried bargaining with them. But I thought that was very interesting when I heard it because it sounded like something out of a spy novel or something like that. This is important. So I was very cautious at those knockoff markets. I didn't buy much. Also because of the fact that I'm horrible at bargaining, and I would offer face value the first time I went to buy something, and of course they'd say, yeah, that's it, that's it. It's I only got 10 yuan. Yeah, it's 10 yuan. It's you don't know that. But so those were knockoff markets. One thing I'm going to skip back to because I just thought about it that I thought was very interesting is the conditions in China. Because one thing that I don't think I showed any in Beijing, even though I had footage of it, I probably should have. But I have more of it in Shanghai is footage of the nightlife there, because it was very, very interesting. It would be just very, very guilty, but it'd be very interesting as well. Our teacher surprisingly let us just walk out at night, like in the dead of night, in one of the streets of Shanghai, which I'm surprised she ever let us do that. But so I'm going to skip back to that because I have footage of some of the market, and it's not as cool looking as Beijing, because Beijing is where they had all like the raw meat hanging out and stuff. But this is equally as cool. So I'm going to skip back to it. Let's see. Where is it? Not really sure what that is. Don't really want to know. I think it's something to do with like duck skin or whatever. So that gives you an idea for the conditions at night. I also have other ones of Beijing which are basically the same thing. But I just thought I'd figure showing you that because it's just like such a stretch from anything you will ever see here, ever. A few notes on other places we visited in Shanghai. We visited the Jade Buddha Temple, which I mentioned I couldn't film in, so I'm not going to bother showing it because you don't really see much. We also visited Yuyuan Garden, which is a garden in Shanghai. very, very beautiful place. There wasn't much stuff to see there, again, reason I'm not showing it. But then,
Was that because of the time of year?
of what?
Was it because of the time of year there wasn't much to show?
Well, it's just one of those things where it's like, just walking through a garden, I mean, all it really is just like flowers, and it's nothing that's going to make you like gasp and like awe. So yeah. But then unfortunately came time to leave, and pretty sure I stopped crying when I walked in the door. But yeah, yeah. So it became time to leave, and we left early in the morning. And because we were more southern China, it took 14 hours to get home. And then we got home, and it was Easter morning. So we missed all an American Easter. And we left early in the morning, and then we get there, and it's 11 p.m. at night, and we went straight to bed. And a few fun things about when I came back. I kind of had like reverse culture shock, I guess you could say. Like, for example, I come out of the airport, and I was like so surprised that I wasn't worried about pickpocketers, or that cars actually stopped for me at a crosswalk. So I was so nervous when I had to cross the street. I thought I was going to get hit or something. But yeah, and so then when we come home, I went to bed at 11 p.m. and then the next day I took off from school because I figured I'd be tired. And I wake up at 1 p.m. Latest I've ever slept in my life. And that was only because I was woken up, otherwise I probably would have slept a day or something. And so then, I couldn't sleep all night because I woke up at 1 p.m. And so then I was all tired the next day, and would have rather been dead than have to go through that day because I was just that tired. So, well, that's my story, and that's the documentary. And so, before I end here, does anyone have any last-minute questions about Shanghai or the entire trip in general? Yes.
I know some parts of China has different language. Was it hard to talk to people?
Surprisingly, yeah. There's Cantonese and Mandarin, and then there are a bunch of other smaller dialects. But there were times when I remember in Guilin, where they're not so used to listening to people speak Chinese, foreigners speak Chinese. So I met a Chinese girl in Yangshuo, and I'm trying to talk to her, and eventually I was forced to give up because she couldn't understand anything I was saying. And they all spoke English, but I just figured it's like, I want to try and speak Chinese. So, but they couldn't understand whether it was my accent or the dialect or whatever, or I just was really bad at speaking Chinese. But other than that, most people could understand me. I remember in Shanghai,